But, it's still fun. Like, why don't we have cybersecurity in K through 12? Why isn't it bigger? Why don't we have Smoking the Bear? Why don't we have these? People think it's boring. It's not boring. It's like so exciting.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Reboot Something podcast. My name's Chad Jeffries. I'm your host. I have Brandon Downey on my left, CEO here at Trilogy. And we have for episode number 2 now, Dr. Devine. Tom Devine is a West Virginia native. He's a WVU, Fairmont State University alumnus, and has done a lot of great work within the computer science program at WVU. And we're excited to cybersecurity. So we're going to talk about all things, cybersecurity, AI, ML, and how it affects students and people today. And who better to talk about that than you, Tom? So,
well, it's a pleasure to be here. The last time, I really enjoyed the conversation we had, and even took away some actionable insights from it. So,
nice.
Some things we talked about there have been instituted into the curriculum now. So it's exciting.
Absolutely.
For instance, I might as well go ahead and say.
I was going to say. Yeah.
So Randy had made me aware of this Red Hat Academy program, and that I had no idea they would just give us all this stuff for free. It's amazing. So over the course of the last 2 semesters, we have Red Hat Academy, the certification courses, incorporated into 2 of our classes so that students get a real handle for that. It's a great platform, and we've actually had Alexander Jaycox, who is one of their principal engineers for Ansible, come and talk about automation, security automation with Ansible to the students a couple times. So that was great.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Not to set the bar high for this one.
Right.
Right.
Who knows? Magic can happen in a room.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was something that we really wanted to focus on whenever we, started working with WVU is teaching the real world skills that are happening today. And when it comes to, Red Hat, one of the biggest, technology providers, that is something that was very important to us, is actually, showing what we're working on today for our customers, and teaching the students that, and working with professors like Tom really help us, integrate that and do what we're talking about. So really exciting stuff.
Absolutely. With Tom pops up everywhere. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
he's everywhere.
Right.
And I would say, and I'm going to give you kudos here, because a lot of the students, especially that come into our program, even the ones that we speak to at the career fairs, they speak highly of you. You're highly engaged. You're definitely one that's bridging the gap between the everyday academic curriculum with industry as well. And it's kind of interesting what you were talking about before. There has to be a balance, right? There has to be a balance between what's taught in the classroom versus what industry is expecting. Right. And so if we can actually bridge that a little bit more, I think we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, just bringing some of that to the left to give more industry, especially small businesses that are looking for a skilled workforce. If we can bring that a little bit more to the left, so when they are graduated, that they have the skill set that they need, especially with those opportunities.
That's what we're there for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
At Fairmont State, so my background was in, distributed machine learning. I didn't really know much about cybersecurity, and Mahmoud Hussain hired me. He was the department chair of Fairmont State. Thanks, Mahmoud. And he was like, teach us cybersecurity. I was like, I don't know. I don't really know anything about that. And he said, not worried at all. Do it. And since then, coming from a point where I didn't already have a background in it, one of the things that I tried to do when I was developing the curriculum, because I had to make all the classes from scratch too, was ask industry, say, hey, what do you want them to know? How can we prepare these students to the best so that when they get to you, they can hit the ground running?
Yeah.
And I've really tried to incorporate that into the classes as much as absolutely possible, because it is the most important thing, I think.
It really is. And it's kind of interesting a stat that I always say, that 40% of businesses today believe that students that are graduating from a traditional 4-year program don't necessarily have the skills, especially within their area of study. And so, with that, to help bridge that gap is to try to introduce more of those concepts into the curriculum. Now, granted, there's still foundational type of things that need to be taught, right? right?
Yeah.
Especially when you just referred to, you didn't have a lot of experience in cybersecurity, but it also shows that the technology evolves so quickly that you have to be equally as adaptable, with the technology changes. And so with that comes various experiences that you can draw upon, especially as emerging technology is introduced into the mainstream.
When I was in the cybersecurity workforce planning group, which was an initiative through the governor's office of West Virginia, and their whole point was to bring industry and academia and everybody together so that we can close the skills gap,
right?
And make cyber like a thing that West Virginia is known for, which would be great. And one of the things that I heard, especially from the representatives from the military, was that they would get students and they would have a 4-year degree and they would come to the job and they would sit down and they would have no idea what to do.
No idea.
And they wouldn't know what they were doing.
Right.
And I took that to heart, and I wanted to make sure that my students, when they get there, know what they're doing and they have, the skills that they need. I think a lot of that is unfamiliarity with like the terminal. Getting them on the terminal early and having them do that like a lot through their entire career so that they're comfortable. Because when somebody sits down at the terminal, starts knocking stuff out and grabbing stuff and piping things into other things, right? They look like they know what they're doing. Right. And I feel like if you don't know that stuff, then that's where you look like you have no clue what's going on. Yeah. So that was one. But to the balance of it, because you can't just teach. I could use an example of this. The IRS came to us back at FSU, and they wanted us to start teaching COBOL. They wanted us to do that because all their systems were written in it, and that's what they used. And everyone was retiring, and they didn't want to update or change anything.
Right.
So they were going to have to, somehow hire these. And we said, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to. So you can't like cater the education too specifically to one thing.
Right.
Because the stuff that they want is going to be, too specific. They won't be able to go anywhere with it. Yeah. So trying to find that balance where, we can introduce them, and that's another thing. We have to get so many different things.
Right.
Right. And everything's changing so rapidly. So like one of the things that I really try to get into the students is, well, for the cybersecurity students, current events, paying attention, right? Being aware, threat intelligence, knowing what's going on in the world. And another one for everybody, being able to rapidly adapt to an emerging technology. I think that's probably the most important thing that they can learn in school is, maybe not everything's handed to me. Maybe I have to figure out how to learn some things on my own. Because that's literally what you
I think that's key, Tom. I do believe that, and there's a couple different points that you made there. One, the COBOL side of it, different languages that come out. There's seemingly a new language every single day that supposedly is doing something better than a previous one did. But at the same time, for me, I was the kid at home. I was the one learning a style. I learned how to solve problems. Not so much around the syntax of the actual language, but how to solve, decompose into smaller units, and aggregate it together. I always worked on my style, always did. Whenever I start to gauge other developers, that's the first thing I look at is how the code has been structured, right? How you can learn a lot about someone. It's just like reading a book. You can learn a lot about the author, their style, and so forth. By reading the book, you can tell how a developer, how advanced they are, the care that they put into their algorithms. You can tell a lot by them.
Absolutely.
So I think we get so hung up on whether or not the JavaScript, Node.js, Java, all this other type. To me, it has changed significantly since I started. Right. Yeah. Whenever I was at WVU, it was 8 and 95. Right. It was 8 and 95, but it also taught you how to structure your code, right? Yeah. And then there's the other thing about you have to be able to adapt, learn it on your own, right? It changes too quickly. But what helps with that is experience, right? So in your classrooms, how are you helping those students build experience around creating algorithms, analyzing new techniques around cyber threats and things of that nature?
Well, let me talk about CS 330, Intro to Software Engineering. That is a class where we do a lot of so they're coming in and all they know is Java, the prereqs. They just have like 2 Java classes. That's it. And then they can take this course. I got a mix of people from sophomore through senior in there from lots of different majors. And some of the things that we focus on are, principles that apply to all software engineering, like modularity, cohesion, coupling, isolation, right? Trying to make it was literally just trying to, we were talking about this yesterday in class, like with a car, your tire goes flat, and you don't want to buy a new car. You want to be able to take that tire off and put a new one on, but not have to change everything else.
I've been doing it wrong all these years, Tom. Is that what you're telling me? Right?
Hey, man, if you can buy a new car, good for you. That's awesome. I wish I could. I got to patch that old tire. But anyway, writing your code, organizing your code in such a way that you can encapsulate, modularize, and isolate change. So when you do have to change something, it's not propagating out into everything else. Or if there isn't, maybe you want to refactor that and you found a new way to do it and there's a new technology, a new library we're going to use. How can we change that without making it affect everything else? And it's by, maintaining the interface and isolating all the data and behavior. So those principles, I think, we hit really hard. And in that class now, traditionally, it's project-based. So they'll do some kind of full-stack web app and have some kind of cloud deployment. So this semester, we were lucky enough to be sponsored by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Agency, in collaboration with West Virginia High Tech Foundation, I believe, WVHTF.
Yes.
And so what we're doing is they're all making, full-stack web apps that interface with cloud-based NOAA data, which they have put out there. So the students are really excited about it because it's like real world experience, right? Mm-hmm. They're making something that could potentially be, could even be marketed and become like an actual product.
Sure.
Yep.
And they're coming up with ideas. They're looking at this real data on how they can use that to create something that is valuable to the world. One of them is just tracking penguins. I'm interested to see that, the penguin group. Well, we'll see how it comes out, but I think that's important. So get them real hands-on experience with real-world data and have them apply those principles. And not just apply them, but prove it. Like, show me. Like, I make them say in some of the assignments, tell me how you are emphasizing the open-close principle, where we're open for extension and closed for modification. How is your code embodying that?
So it gets them to analyze their work a lot more, but it also, I feel like combats that, or at least teaches them those soft skills that it takes in the real world to justify, why you're doing something. And if, you don't have the why, then there's no point in doing it in a way, right?
Those very principles transcend development.
Yeah, right.
They really do.
Exactly.
That is basic engineering approach, right? And you can apply those same principles to other aspects of business. I use it all the time. It's like, how do I separate distraction from opportunity, right? And that's a key thing. So, and if I have an opportunity identified, how do I approach it? Right, and it's the same thing. Those same methodologies that you're teaching those kids are actually going to help them in their professional career as well as their life.
That's another thing we're trying to get is the entrepreneurial aspect of coming up with an idea, and then trying to market it out and make it a thing. In cyber, I do some different things, and of course, every day I look through my feeds and I pick some things and we talk about those at the beginning of class. Because as a cyber professional, one of the most important things is just stay aware. You have to know what's going on, right? It's not just this new vulnerability is out, everybody's being exploited in the world. I have that, I need to patch that, right? I mean, that's a big one. But also, like, I am in this industry, and this industry is constantly being ransomware. I need to make sure we're ready for that when it happens.
Right.
So paying attention to the world around them and watching as the threat landscape evolves. I also try to make them, get them experience with as many different types of tools and emerging technologies as possible. So this isn't a new tool, but today, what we're going to do in class, we're working on a lab. This is my fundamentals, which is the first cyber class that most of them take, So we're going to have them use Kali, and we're going to explore password cracking with John the Ripper, which is really, really old. And then also parallelizing that with Hashcat to, compare CPU versus regular cracking performance. And I do a demo where, I show them, I let them pick, any random characters to put in a password, and we'll generate the hash for it, and I'll put it in here, and I'll feed it into like my 3090 at home, and it'll crack, anything, 8 characters, it could take maybe a half hour, 7 characters, like 2 minutes, it'll crack anything, no matter what you use. So that, when they see that, then they start thinking, that informs their idea of what a good password policy is, or why we need multi-factor authentication.
Right.
So yeah, get them to do that. Like I have them in pen testing. We did just exploratory stuff last semester, where we were having them look at AI and how AI can be used in penetration testing, and to try it and show me some stuff and see what happens. And that helps me. It's kind of cheating on my part, because I'm going to have them go do research on all these things so I can look through it and learn. And then if there's a good one, maybe we'll make a lesson out of that.
That's just
Can't
efficiency.
tell all your secrets, man.
Yeah,
Don't do that.
Well, really, our number one asset is our students.
And you're using them.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. You take a look at some of the things that you're teaching, especially the tools, the techniques. They're jumping into an industry, especially cybersecurity, that's going to, based upon cybercrime itself, it's going to grow to 10.5 trillion by the end of 2025. 10.5 trillion. That's a significant amount in damages. And so learning simple things, like just to help organizations, protect themselves, it's going to be key. So how do you relate that to your students? How do you say, hey, listen, this field is growing exponentially now, exponentially. And as the last time I took a look, there were 3.4 million cyber jobs out there across the globe, and 500,000 of those were in the United States alone. So how do you prepare them to jump into a field that is growing leaps and bounds?
Well, again, staying on top of trying to get that. Oh my God, I'm going to say the word. Trying to foster. I was literally just complaining about how generative AI uses that word as overkill. But trying to foster the idea that they're going to have to stay on top of stuff. Like they have to always be adapting to new things as they come, and they have to pay attention because everything's constantly changing. So we were just looking at ransomwares. Of course, I forget which report came out. This was last week. One of the quarterly threat reports, and it was saying that however many billions of dollars had been spent on these ransomware. So we spent a lot of time on that, because it's not really, there's also, it was like 60% or 70%, I don't remember the exact numbers, of these businesses experienced a ransomware in the last year. I mean, these things, it's not like, oh, maybe it'll happen. It's definitely going to happen, right? It's happening right now.
I think the average was $40 million for ransomware. The average was $40 million.
Yeah, it's insane, and it's always going up. So, how do you prepare for that? And one of the things you don't do is pay the ransom. I mean, if we keep paying the ransoms, you're encouraging them to do it more, right?
That's true.
So it's just going to keep going up and up and up.
Yeah, but what MGM had their big
MGM,
outage. I think they were reporting a loss of $100 million, because of their ransomware. But they had to rebuild everything from the ground up. And so they took it upon themselves to say, hey, listen, we're not going to be held to anyone's ransom. We're going to take matters in our own hands. But not everyone has $100 million to rebuild their entire infrastructure. Now, comparing their infrastructure to others, it's a wrong thing to do because of what they have to do to protect their vital information. But not a lot of businesses, especially small businesses, are in a position to do so. And there's maybe the path of least resistance for them is to pony up some money. 100%. Right?
They also hit like education, government, people that traditionally haven't put a lot of effort into the cyber side of things.
Right.
But I mean, it's, if you get the ransomware, you can, if you have all your backups and you have them stored and isolated so that it can't get to them because it'll encrypt those too. And you actually practice like a fire drill, right? Because when the thing happens, people panic.
They do.
So I'm not saying don't just have the backups and have them ready, have them updated, and then practice. Once every couple months, find some downtime. Right. Say, oh, we got to roll out everything from the images we have. Practice it, and then when it happens, you're not going to panic and pay the money, because we know within like 6 hours I can have everything back up and running. Of course, you also have to close the gap that let them in the first place. So there's a lot of threat hunting that'll go into that to see how they got there.
So let me ask you a question. K through 12 education is very, very important to us here at Trilogy.
Absolutely.
And we know that to foster the next generation of
I'm a
professionals.
foster parent, so I notice when the word's used. Right.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you do. I'm sure. In order to help the next generation, it has to start a lot sooner than when they're within their 4-year degree. So what are some of the things that we should be focusing on right now to help those kids identify career paths early on, especially related to cybersecurity, that can help them along the way in order to jump immediately into this exponentially growing field? Yeah.
Build up that workforce. A lot of students have no idea that it's even an option for them. So there are a number of things that I have participated in for this, and then there's like some national movement on things. The things that I'm familiar with are like the hour of code. Have you heard of this?
I'm not.
Okay, this is the thing they do at the high school level, and it's called the hour of code. It's like the first week in December. And so, for instance, every year for the last, I don't know how many years pre-COVID, I go to Grafton High School and we'll give a talk. And back in the day, it used to be like just me and maybe represented, like somebody from Fusion came with me once, and we would just give talks to the whole student body. Well, they have some teachers down there that really care and are doing a great job. Stacy Ward is one of them. And she has organized this into an event where she brings, there were 30 sessions at Grafton High School last year for the hour of code. And the sessions were ran by representatives from industry, from government, from academia. And the students would pick which sessions they want to go to. And we all come there, and just the school is taken over by, and it's not just somebody talking about something, like get their hands on some keyboards and write some code or do something. So I traditionally will do like a cryptography exercise with them and get them to decrypt something. And then I'll give them a big hard one. If they can get it, then I'll offer them scholarship money or something like, come on up because we want you.
That's cool.
So what I've been trying to do is to get the student organizations at WVU involved with these events. So last year, AI WVU, which is the Artificial Intelligence Club, went down and did an AI presentation interactive activity with them. We also have a newly formed Women in Cybersecurity organization. Now that one, I've kind of been the advisor since it started, but it all came about because of one student who wanted more outreach into the schools. So we're just getting organized this semester, but one of our goals as an organization is not only go to the hour of code, but go into some of the younger schools. My son is now at the Morgantown Learning Academy, so I'm going to try and start there. I haven't told them yet, but I want to start develop some activities that a kid can understand, that are fundamental and that we can take in there and just show them that there are these options. And in West Virginia, there's so many good options for cyber. We really have so many things working for us in that field that we need. We need to get in their heads when they're young. I got a lot of students in like 110, CS 110, which is Intro to Computer Science. And I have some students that have absolutely no background, whatever, and they just decided they were going to do this. I have other ones that come in who took the right classes in high school and have, applied themselves throughout. And they're just so far ahead of the curve. Right, it's really a massive advantage if you start early. So that's what we're trying to do. Get into the classrooms and let them know it's an option. Let them know which classes to pick to make it a reality, and kind of get them going in the right direction early.
Right. And then any thoughts on, a lot of kids are in a position to go off to a university. Any thoughts on the non-traditional route, right? So,
lots of thoughts.
Please share.
So one of the things on our paper was like AI in the workforce and how it's going to replace all these workers. And I jotted down some quick stats. 300 million jobs could be replaced in the U.S. Where are the other ones? 2/3 of jobs are already, 66% are already using AI in some capacity. A quarter of the jobs could be done entirely by AI, and educated white-collar workers making $80K or less are going to be the most affected. By 2030, they estimate 14% of the global workforce will be displaced. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I don't know y'all's background, but when I grew up, we used to have to go bale hay, and the whole family would get together, and we'd spend that couple days of the summer, working in the hot and sneezing from the allergies and throwing hay bales all over the place. Well, then Granddad got a round baler, and he could do that whole operation by himself. And us workers were displaced. Yeah. We didn't complain. That was not a bad thing for us, right? We got to explore other options. Yeah. We got to evolve so that we could do different things. Mm-hmm. So what the workforce needs to do when this AI is coming in is, first of all, it's not going to replace people. It's meant to be a collaborative tool to amplify the productivity of a human, not replace the human. But it gives you the opportunity to evolve as a worker and to learn new things. And I had a really good experience. So this is where the non-traditional student comes in, right? Because there's going to be a lot of them that are being so-called displaced or just trying to augment what they already have. So when Milan shut down in Morgantown, that displaced a lot of workers. And back when I was at Fairmont, they had a program where they would pay for them to get an education in something else, which was fantastic. And I had students, I know one in particular, who was a very diverse individual, used to be into amateur wrestling, like at one point. Very interesting person that I knew. And he was, over 50, trying to learn a new trick. Yeah. And got into cybersecurity and started taking these classes and, stuck to it and learned it and is now gainfully employed in the cyber industry. So it's very, very possible. But I think with a workforce displacement or something, being able to invest so that those people can afford to do that, I think is going to be like a government initiative.
Agreed. And people have to understand, too, that it's not just cybersecurity. You don't have to be an engineer and administrator. There are so many different aspects to cybersecurity. Yeah. And I think people have to take a step back and realize that just because you think that you may not like the field, I guarantee there might be something in that field that you might enjoy. So just, venture out, see what it's about and see there's different, the various aspects that you may be able to gravitate towards and you may be able to pick up on, especially if you're going to be part of the group that may be displaced, quote unquote displaced.
Yeah, find what speaks to you and that you have a passion for and go with it. Absolutely.
Right. Absolutely. So we talked about the K through 12 non-traditional route, and I'm rather curious about your take on West Virginia. You made a comment early on about this particularly could be an industry that could help offset some of the, especially the economic diversity here in the state. How do you foresee, what are some of the challenges that the state is actually going to run into when we start to take a look at cybersecurity and promoting it? Now, we have it at the academic levels, right? WVUs, the Marshalls of the world, West Virginia State University, a lot of different academic institutions in the state are moving towards the actual cybersecurity field. But what is it going to take to have it as the industry that's going to help diversify West Virginia?
Because the jobs are going to be here. We're going to be pulling in jobs, and what I don't want to happen, and I always apologize to my non-West Virginia students because I advocate a lot for. I mean, I'm from West Virginia,
Yeah.
a small town, I baling hay with granddad. So I'm trying to bring up these. I got coal miners in the family. It's deeply ingrained. But getting into those K through 12s, like making sure that we are growing that workforce homegrown, right? So the thing that can happen is, we'll get these jobs and it's cheaper to do business here rather than DC or Northern Virginia. So the businesses will come here and they'll start working. But are they going to pull people in from elsewhere? Or are we going to get our people to come here and fill those jobs and stay here? Because that's a huge problem in West Virginia, is that they get an education, they get their degree, and they leave. How do we encourage them to stay here? And really, I don't have an answer for that one.
No, it's a hard one.
It's
right?
it's
It
a
really is
real
hard
problem.
one. There's many different facets to it. You spoke to a few of them. The opportunities, right? That's going to get a lot of the people outside the state into the state. You got to be able to have, a job for them, right? And I think
100%.
growing that workforce brings in more businesses, which brings in more opportunity.
Yeah, because if you can give the business leaders confidence in the workforce that we've created, then that just helps. It's all a synergy and it builds itself.
It really does, and that helps out the local community. It helps out, the small convenience stores, restaurants, hotels, things of that nature. So you're growing the cities, especially as those opportunities are manifested. And so, the other thing, K through 12, we talked about. There's a lot of disparity between what we do here in North Central West Virginia, and we move more towards the southern part of the state. And I think there's a big gap there that we need to start shining a spotlight on. And I think the education is one of them, right? And I think making sure it's consistent across the actual state is another thing that we have to do. We have to do. And I agree with you. There are a significant number of programs here in this state that we honestly, no one knows about, right? Not a lot of people know about the agencies, the businesses, the large, medium, and small businesses that are here in this state that have made an investment. If you go to any citizen here within the state and you ask them about it, they probably wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about a lot of the students leaving the state, it actually kind of borders along the same line of information flow, right? They don't know any better, right?
Exactly.
80% of students leave, our 4-year academic programs, 80% of the students leave the state. We have to stop that, right? We have to stop that. But in order to keep them here, we got to have the opportunity for them here, right? So
it's a bit of educating, our customers as well, right?
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
It's up to businesses to stress that importance and need of cybersecurity and especially, AI now. And there's a lot of ethical challenges that are around that. We were kind of talking about it before we started recording, but I'd kind of like to talk about that a little bit more. You did your presentation on the dark side of AI, and I'd really like to jump into that. And you want to kind of give us some of those highlights. You already started by sharing some of those numbers, but talk to me about your presentation for the West Virginia Press Association convention.
So for that presentation, we were talking to the press, and they wanted to know about misinformation or disinformation, which is deliberate misinformation, and how AI is helping that in the news cycle. So I took it a little bit further. I was like, well, let's talk about all the bad things about AI. And as a cybersecurity guy, we have to we got to put the black hats on, and we got to say, we have to look at things adversarially and see how they're being used in a negative light. And there were a lot of different things that you could talk about. Number one was the job displacement, which I already mentioned. Number two was the ethics of using the AI and how to use it responsibly, because that's a big deal. And there are several different places where bias can creep in to a model. It can either come through the training data, or it can come through subconscious choices made by the programmer during coding the algorithm. But either way, that once that bias is built into the model, it will be expressed in everything that it does. So, for example, Amazon had they wanted to make an algorithm. I'm sure you guys hire people. You probably get a lot of applications. They wanted some kind of filtering application. They wanted to use AI to say which ones should they look at because they're more likely to get hired. Well, guess what? They started looking at that empirically, and they saw that it was recommending men.
Yes.
And
I read that same
yeah.
study. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and they actually studied it and did something about it, which is nice. But if you don't do that and you just trust it,
Right.
then, or if I have a confirmation bias, for instance, like I think that men are better programmers, which I definitely do not.
Yeah.
But then I'm just going to see that result, and the AI said I'm going to trust it more. I'm going to think that's the good thing. I'm going to go with that. And that's a real problem. And the bias leaked into that one most likely from the training data, where they had trained on, male-oriented hiring over the last however many years. So we got to break free from that. And that's just a mild example. Like there are lots of other examples where, so now we're going to put AI in charge of life or death decisions. Like they have laws, lethal autonomous weapon systems. That's terrifying to me.
Yeah.
The AI,
It sounds terrifying,
Yeah, that does
right?
sound terrifying. Like,
well,
what?
it's like you have a drone that kills people, but it does it using facial recognition and algorithms that say whether that person should live or die.
Yeah.
It's like a plot from a movie.
I know, right? That sounds like a
It's
horror
real
film.
life, though. I'm telling
Yeah.
you. I was at a Christmas party
Dystopia.
for a company. This is many years ago, and there were a bunch of, I probably shouldn't even say that, there were a bunch of government people in suits there. And later in the night, it was an open bar. Everybody was having a good time. And then they found out I did AI. And this guy was saying to me, I want you to make me a pair of glasses I can put on a soldier. And they can look at somebody and can analyze everything and say kill or not kill. That's what he wanted.
Like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
There's a reason
I
I'm
don't want
in
that on my
education
conscience, right.
and not in the
Is this a
military.
trick question?
I want to help, not kill.
Right.
Yeah, but the cost of a false positive
Right.
there is really, really high.
lot.
We're talking about human life. And just like who's even responsible for that decision? Like Tesla, they have the autopilot feature on their cars. So when I think of autopilot, I think I could like read a book. You cannot. You have to pay attention to the road and be ready to take control at any minute.
Yep.
Since up until 2024, they've had 13 collisions that involved one or more person dying that were based on autopilot. And Tesla maintained, they're in court for this right now, they maintain that it was the fault of the driver because they said right there, and that I agree, right, that you will pay attention. You agreed to it.
Right.
So
Always
not
read your
our
terms
fault.
and conditions.
You should have done it. Yeah, but nobody does, right? It's the
right.
biggest lie in the modern world, as I have read and agreed.
The
Clear.
font's
Yeah,
small
right.
and
Accept
you know,
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Move on.
Hard to read.
Yeah. So now, I mean, if we have an AI that we're putting in charge of making decisions that could be very impactful decisions, and it could be biased based on, whatever the training data or the algorithm, then that's a real problem. So how are we going to ensure that it's not before we start trusting it? And I think that's a major problem. Or so not just a natural bias that's sneaked in from training on something, but what about an adversarial bias that was introduced to it on purpose to manipulate what that model will do?
Right.
How are we watching out for that right now?
Yeah.
We are spending a lot of money on developing and promoting AI, but we're not spending a lot of money from the government standpoint on securing that AI from the beginning. And this is always the problem with security, right? We tack it on at the end.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah.
Always
Instead
at the
of the
end.
shift left, we got to bake it in at the beginning and not wait for the problem to happen and then try to fix it. We would be proactive about things, not reactive.
Yeah.
So that's a major issue right now.
And I would say it's a major issue for government. We have several customers that are basically having the exact same issues.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those things. How do you lock it down?
How do you
Like,
trust
how do
it?
you secure it? And so that's going to be an ongoing. And I know a lot of institutions, a lot of universities are working on that, especially from a postgraduate perspective. But yeah, I'd be rather curious on how things unfold here in the near future.
Or we mentioned, I don't know how earlier this was, how like somebody denying culpability in an action because, it's AI generated, I didn't do that.
Right.
So this is the other level, the disinformation or the misinformation, how we can trust anything in the world anymore. Because it used to be, you hear something and you're like, that's probably not true. It might be true. And then you see a picture of it and you're like, oh, well, there's a picture. But then Photoshop came out and you're like, oh, well, I can't really trust that picture anymore.
Right.
But if there was a video of them saying it, I know they can't fake that. So that had to be real. But now they can fake the video too. So where does it stop? I mean, what can you trust anymore?
Right. No, here's the thing. Like some of these gray hairs coming in right here. If you guys want to touch that up later on, feel free to. I give you permission to right now.
Yeah, right.
Help me out here.
Right there. No, that's there's a lot of ethics around these two topics, and do you feel that AI is starting to replace that focus on cybersecurity, and is there that middle ground where we can blend them and work together?
So yeah, when I was looking up stats, some of the things that I saw, and of course Black Hat was going on the week that I was giving that presentation, so I got a lot of good info from there, was that AI, so we know the cyber skills gap, that's a big one, and we're trying to close it. We know that hiring for cyber is through the roof, and it's number one. Number two is AI, and it's catching up very quickly on job postings, and seeing that people want this incorporated into your skill set when they're doing hires. So it is something that's growing extremely rapidly. So it's like now we have an AI skills gap that we have to close on everybody. And so if we're talking about AI and re-education of the workforce to help get those skills in there so that they can look good on that, you don't have to. People get afraid. There's a lot of imposter syndrome in the world. Like developing the confidence of a student is a big deal too. Yeah. Showing them that they can do something that they thought there's no way I can do that, and then they have that moment and they're like, hey, I can do this, and then they feel better about themselves. My 11-year-old does that all the time.
I can relate to that now.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. I mean, it's a real thing. I have imposter syndrome. So is everybody. But trying to close that skills gap and re-educate these workers, you don't have to know everything about how the AI works. You don't have to be able to write the algorithm in order to use it responsibly and not just blindly trust it. I said Black Hat. One of the things that Black Hat that they were talking about was vulnerabilities in code. And it's something I think a lot about because it's literally my job. So cybersecurity vulnerabilities in code, and they saw that 36 to 41%, that the AI-generated code was 36 to 41% more likely to include cybersecurity vulnerabilities. And again, that's because it's trained on something, and it's trained on an existing code base that has a lot of flaws, right? There's a lot of bad code out there. I think we all know that. And so if I'm training on all that bad code, I'm going to write bad code. But that wasn't the surprising thing, right? Like, because I knew this is an exercise we do in class. I'll pull up ChatGPT and we'll say, hey, make me a web login PHP form. And the first thing it does, hard code the database credentials in there.
Mm-hmm. I believe that.
Come on, man. And if you're a student and you're learning, you don't even know that's a bad thing. And then now you're going to see that and you're going to be like, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in my project. And now it's going to get out into production. And now,
like a public repository. Now everyone's going to see it.
Like, come on, man.
You're reinforcing it.
Me. Yeah. And then the AI is going to train itself on that. Exactly. It's like this never-ending cycle so it's good cybersecurity outlook for the jobs, right? Because there's always going to be these vulnerabilities built into it. But the surprising thing about the results that they were looking at is that not that it was vulnerable code, because of course it was. It was that the developers or the people were 60% more likely to trust it over their own code, which was more secure. So, and that's because of this lack of confidence or this imposter, this kind of, I don't trust myself to not do it enough. So I'm going to look at this thing and I feel like it should have a little picture of a lock on it, and therefore it's secure and it's making good stuff, but it's really not.
It's really not.
So we're getting people to believe in themselves and their own abilities, and to trust really those fundamental principles, like the cybersecurity fundamental principles we pound into their head throughout the program, which is just like the software engineering ones,
It's almost like both, subjects of AI, machine learning, and cybersecurity are, expand across, technical professionals or technical
Absolutely.
people. It's non-technical, right?
Yeah.
And there needs to be, almost more training for the people that are not technologists and understanding, the basic cybersecurity principles, and then just that baseline trust that we have for, computers to do the job for us. So,
Yeah.
there's that balance.
You got to kill that.
Right, right.
Stop.
And that's why we're talking about it here. And that's why, I think that this is a great platform for us to be able to have these conversations, get the real world, examples that you're experiencing as a professor, and then what we see on the technologist side and the professional side and providing services, especially for government contracting and all the sensitive data and stuff that's being dealt with. So I guess as far as students and emerging professionals, what does this mean for them? Right? Like, what does this mean for all of us as non-technical folks and technical folks? Like, what can they be doing now, in your opinion?
Yeah, and it touches everything, all different industries. This is why I always like computer science, because no matter what you like, you can take computer science and do that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so ubiquitous that it's everywhere. Cybersecurity and AI are the same kind of things now. So you have to get some basic skills in it. You got to learn the stuff. I try to push in the classes I teach, because I'm so harping on all the cybersecurity vulnerabilities and everything all the time when we're teaching coding, that I can't not teach buffer overflows. Like, I have to say that when I teach C code, but not everybody does that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we need everybody to know that.
Yeah.
Because the buffer overflow is like number one on this list of vulnerability. You go search MITRE's CVEs for it right now, and there's like thousands of instances this year, and it's so easy to not do, right? Just don't do it. To the point where the president is like, we're not going to use C anymore. Everybody needs to rewrite all the code in Rust. And it's like, oh my God, that's crazy, because we can't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So yeah, what do the students do? I mean, everybody needs to get some cyber education in them, at least at some point. And I really like teaching this foundations course because it's like their first one. And I get to like open their eyes to all the stuff that's going on in the world that nobody knows about because they don't pay attention. It's not even that they don't pay attention. They don't even know. I mean, maybe we need to advertise better, or make people more aware that we are in a state of constant cyber warfare. Like, this stuff is happening every day. APTs are hacking the crap out of everybody every day. So maybe get it into how do you get the news is what I would think, but
got to be careful with that.
Yeah,
I talk about
that.
misinformation there. So but I think it has to be part of everyday conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
Cyber awareness.
Cyber awareness.
We need like a Smokey the Bear level cyber mascot to like get it into like the kids.
That
right?
immediately took me to my childhood. Right? Immediately took my childhood, man.
And fire safety. And you immediately think about
It
that.
was very simplified.
Yeah.
Very simplified.
And stop, drop, and roll. I haven't had to do that once.
Well, I hope you never
As much
have
as
to,
they
sir.
drilled that into my head. Like, why don't we drill some other things that they will have to do, like protect yourself from cyber tech.
Right.
At that level. I feel like I've been saying that for a long time, but I don't have a good mascot yet.
Yeah.
So I'm open to ideas.
Yeah.
What, you don't want to be the mascot?
I mean, I would totally dress up and go to the schools. I feel like I'd be great at it. I just don't know what the character should be.
Right.
You should ask Jody Ogle about that.
We should.
Yeah,
absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Next time he's on, we'll have to
Exactly.
ask
The
him.
cybersecurity infrastructure security administration, the newest federal administration. Jody Ogle is amazing. He is absolutely that mascot. I just feel like when you said that, I immediately thought of him because he wants to make sure that companies have the infrastructure to teach cyber awareness. And I feel like he was also explaining how that need is also in our schools, in our system, and it's having these types of conversations that's really going to make the impact. But at the same time, it is a challenge.
It is,
how much
and
we put
it's
into
everyone's responsibility.
Yeah.
Too. So a lot of it, we talk about the insider threat. We were talking about it's not just actors outside your organization. It's everyone within the organization too. And I'm not saying they're doing anything nefarious or anything of that nature, but sometimes miscues, missteps can lead to vulnerabilities within an organization. So that's an education thing. But as we sit here and talk about it, they're getting more and more sophisticated in their attacks. I mean, they really have I get emails, sent by me to various, employees within the organization asking for information, right? So it's just like, it's almost like a daily thing.
Right.
And they're using the AI to help write better emails to send to them too, right? It's like the crossover.
Right. Absolutely. So one quick question, I was rather curious. Do you allow generative AI in your courses? And if you do, then to what extent do you allow them to use it?
So it depends on the course. So for like 110, this is Intro to Computer Science. They're learning how to write code for the very first time, a lot of them. So when it comes to quizzes and tests, you do that in the classroom on a lockdown browser with me looking over your shoulder, walking around and calling people out when they try to do, looking at their phone and stuff. No digital stuff. So the other assignments, projects, participation activities, coding challenges, there's a lot of those assignments. And for those, if you want to use it, that's fine. I'm not checking. And but when you need to know that when it's time to actually produce, you have to know the stuff. And I think the best thing I can do for the student, because it's very tempting to want to go use if the answer's right there, why wouldn't I look at it? It takes a lot of willpower to not do that and to instead struggle and bang your head against this code. But that's really the process where you learn how to do it, right? By banging your head against it over and over and over. Nobody's good at it at first. So I try to emphasize that to them on a personal level, right? That you need to exercise your brain. It has to go through these exercises. It's not ever going to be strong enough to do these things. Yeah. And that when they come into class and they have to, write the stuff, then they're on their own. And, if they depended on for the other things, they're going to flounder. And probably 40% of the grade is there. So you could still get a D if all you did was use ChatGPT. That's that class, though. Like the Intro to Software Engineering, one of the things they have to do is make a lot of documentation. If you want to use AI to help you make documentation, go for it. Like user manuals or whatever. Just check it and make sure that it's right and it's not just making stuff up. And I've had that, and I've had them use it for one of our testing reports that they do. And I said, we did all this stuff. And I was like, you didn't do any of this stuff. Like, it's just, so that's not okay, right? I say you can use it,
right?
But it still needs to be accurate, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Other things, so other classes, like I just did a software engineering secure software master course over the summer. And they had a lot of great students in it. It was the first time we ran it. And they have some more open-ended, like, assignments where they have to write things. And I would take it and check it. Like you can use like GPT-0 will check and give you a probability of AI generation. It's not perfect, but I would cap your grade at a B if you're going to use AI to generate the thing. Gotcha. And I tell them that up front. And if you want to make sure that because some they're always, I didn't use it at all. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And take your thing and feed it in there. It's free. And go check it. And if it says over 80% is AI generated, then you need to change
question
that.
It, right?
Because you don't want to sound like an AI. You don't want your writing to sound like the generative AI because it's so formulaic and repetitive and bland and monotonous. And I absolutely despise reading it. So in that class, there was a cap. So yeah, you can use it in some places, but you can't depend on it as the only thing that you can do. You don't want to graduate. I know I used to see them, so at graduation, when the CS students, they always have the hats and they put stuff on the hats and always go to graduation. And they're always like, thank you, Google. Thank you, Stack Overflow, right? For the degree. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of thank you, ChatGPTs on the hand. But if that's all you can do, and then you're going to go out in the workforce, guess what? You're going to get there, and you're going to sit down, and what are they going to say? You have no idea what you're doing.
Yep.
Same problem we were just talking about.
Right.
Right? So you're going to, I think the only way to get them to not do that is to really make them care about, see that that you're only stunting your own growth. Like,
It's for enhancement, not replacement.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can either look like an idiot now
Yeah.
and be good when you get to work, or you can look like an idiot there. And
Right.
I don't want that because I gave you a decree. So,
Right.
yeah, try to make them care, I think
Yeah.
is
Kind of
important.
interesting challenges on your
It really is.
your part, right? And all the other professors within the university. It's one of those things where we are very quick to adopt newer technology without fully understanding the implications, right? And you yourself, all of you guys have to be very agile into understanding how to either dismiss it, leverage it, or basically integrate it within with what you guys
You
do
don't
every
want
day.
to shut it off completely.
Yeah.
They need to be able to use it at some point. In pen testing, which is like a capstone level security class, we have a couple assignments where I'm like, okay, I want you to use AI for this whole thing, right? I want you to have it guide you through a pen test and see how good that pen test is going to be, and have it make the report and look at it. And of course, I do that so I can then look at all those, right? It helps me better identify them when they do it.
Yeah.
But I think they get a good experience out of it because they do it and then, point out all the places it was wrong and it didn't do it right. And that will open their eyes. I can't just trust this thing to do everything for me.
Yeah.
I need to be able to look at it and fix it at least, or
Right.
recognize when it should not be trusted. So that's another good one.
That's a
That's
really
a
good
approach.
practice.
I do. I love that approach.
I do too. That's great.
If you have any other ideas, I'd love to hear them.
Well, you're the one generating the ideas. You give us some.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll just have to have a recurring annual conversation with you to see how these things
right.
are evolving and affecting and the different problems. Let's segue to the capstone and
Sure.
talking about our last episode or our very first episode, I should say. You introduced the drone program, the Indra drone program. So talk to us about how that all went. What were some of the successes and give some kudos to the students that you worked with.
Absolutely. What a great experience. So the original platform was developed by a group of students spearheaded by Tom Hasselman. And this thing, so they've got an application. They developed an application. They did it in a modular way so that you could write modules and then have it include that module and it would put it into your application. So we started out as a base. All we wanted it to do was scan and see if it could find a drone and then do a deauth attack because we're going to have a big red exploit button, right? Because that's the one everyone wants to hit. And that first group, when they finished, they had it. They got it going. So they had the application. It would scan. You could identify this is for a Wi-Fi drone. And then you could hit the exploit button and it would deauth that we would lose control over it. That's awkward, especially when they want us to demo it in a room full of people because we literally don't have control of it right now. And it just hovers there.
Oh, okay.
And and if you get under it, it'll start going up. So you have to really quickly snatch it and flip it over, and that triggers an auto shut off in it, and it'll turn off. But I have had a student recently demoing this who got their thumb in it and got a little whacked. It didn't hurt him for real.
Yeah.
But it's still fun. Like another thing that why don't we have cybersecurity in K through 12? Why isn't it bigger? Why don't we have Smoking the Bear? Why don't we have these? People think it's boring. It's not boring. It's so exciting. And when I go talk to people, we do demos and stuff like this. They're like, "Wow, that's really cool."
Yeah.
But
has to do with that.
For some reason, when they think about it outside of that, they're like, "Oh, that's just boring government crap."
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what they've been exposed to up to that particular point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So get them out there. I mean, every group I've ever talked to about cyber is always excited about it by the time we finish. Just talking about what's going on. Anyway, so they got this application, and then the next groups decided we were going to add some modules to it. So we did an RF module because we wanted to hit the Mavic, which is you can either communicate wirelessly or through radio frequency. So the nicer drone used the radio frequency. So we wanted to be able to jam it. We initially called it the mountain cannon, and we wanted to like zap it out of the sky. We adjusted that after we looked up all the laws on what you're allowed to do with radio frequencies.
Sure. Okay.
And we had to scale things down a little bit.
Yeah.
But we did get an antenna and some boosters. And by the end, it only worked one time, but we were able to zap it and knock it down. It's tough because the signal hops all over the place, and we didn't have enough juice to spam the whole band. Anyway, so they did that. They worked on that, and then the other group focused on making this a cloud deployable thing. So having the application run on a container in the cloud, well, I think they used a VM in the cloud, where I can just have this antenna and plug it in, and it'll be able to do everything. Like thin client, it'll do everything from the cloud. That worked for the DAuth. The DAuth worked great, the app worked great, and it went really well. For the jamming, it introduced a latency that you can't have when you're doing that real-time signal jamming. Mm-hmm. So for that, we're focusing now. So that brings us to this semester. Well, hold on.
Yeah.
So then we wrote a paper. I said, guys, I really want to get a paper out on this as a cybersecurity education thing. Your experience with this, and hands-on cyber education, and how it helps you guys. And they did a lot of really good work. Alexander Rowland, Dylan Cunningham, Peter Zakanis, Justin Scott. These guys put a lot of effort, and Tom Hasselman came in and helped us with that too. Making this paper, and then we submitted it to a conference, and then Trilogy was gracious enough to help fund these students to travel. I couldn't go. I wish I could have. We would have had a good time. But they got to go present this research. You want to talk about growing the confidence of a student?
Right.
Let's put them into a conference that has a 18 to 20% acceptance rate.
In Las Vegas, by the way.
In Las Vegas. It wasn't in the Sphere, but it was right next to it. It was in the pyramid one.
Gotcha.
Luxor.
Luxor, yeah.
Yeah. And they presented this research in front of a group of academics and professionals, and they had such an amazing experience doing that. And I have had several of those students I stay in touch with, and they've told me how powerful that was to be a part of that. And I'd be an undergrad and get a paper published in a reputable conference. It's a big deal. Right? It makes a big difference. So now they're out there in the real world working, and they have that under their belts. So that was a great experience for them. So we just had a meeting yesterday. Our new groups, we have, so I have one group who is now in their implementation phase. Their job is video interception.
So real quick, how many students did you start off with versus how many you have now?
Yeah.
I think there were 7 in the initial cohort, and now, so we're trying to keep it around there because I get a lot of applications. We're talking about applications versus how many I accepted. I had about 20 people that wanted in, but we only kept 9 because we needed to keep it down to like 2 groups. Because there's so many other really cool opportunities out there, and I don't want to be the guy that's taking everybody.
But that's a really cool project.
It is cool.
I want to work on that project.
Yeah.
But there are other ones. We got to feed everybody. So anyway, right. So I had 9 in that group, and then I had 4. So I have like 13 right now that are working on it, and that's a good number. I'll try to keep it around there. So the implementation group, which is CSEU 481 right now, is doing video interception. So we want to be able to watch our application that we have, I want to plug a window in and have it show what the drone sees. And they did it already. Wow, nice. We watched video yesterday, as it turns out. But we tried the very easy thing first. Now we're going to make it harder. Yeah. Start with the babies, get the quick win, get the morale up, and then start tackling the more difficult things. So
we're only 4 weeks into the new semester.
I know, right? It just started.
Yeah. Wow.
So the next thing, they kind of did like a back alley. There's almost like a back door that was left in the drone intentionally as a dev environment, but you can use the methods from that to steal the video from it. And it's fairly easy. You know, you just have to set the things up to talk to each other the right way. So what I want, but that loses video feed on the controller. So we want to be able to watch while they're doing stuff, right? We don't want to be like, oh, something's wrong, and land it. And we don't want to fly blind because losing control is already bad enough, right?
You don't do that.
Yeah. So the next step, what they're working on now, is doing that same thing, only doing it by sniffing the packets on the network and then dumping the UDP into the application that plays the video. So then we can. And then we're going to look at modification and also trying to set it up as a man in the middle if we have it encrypted, because the encryption is always a problem. So that's really exciting.
Yeah.
The two new groups are also very excited. One of them is picking up where the RF group left off. So we're doing it on hardware instead of through the internet to get rid of the latency, and we got to get some more. We got to get a couple little signal boosters that'll give us enough power to knock that out. But I feel really good about that one. And so I call them Seek and Destroy. I have Seek. They are my group that is working on the scanning. So right now the scanning shows you like every Wi-Fi network in the area, which is like on campus, it's insane.
Oh, I bet it is.
It's
a rather long list.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it was also single threaded, and it would only happen when you did it. So now we're trying to pull that out into its own thread that will auto update, scan everything, and then identify potential drone targets so that they come up. And they immediately were saying, we want to have a map that shows a picture of them on the map where we can find them and see what they are. I was like, well, that's pretty cool, but let's just get the list filtered first, right?
Yeah.
But it's good that they're excited.
They're thinking, too, about next steps. I can appreciate that.
Yeah, so those are the seekers, and then the destroyers are pumping up the jam on the RF. The jam, signal jam.
I love it. Yeah, that's great. Well, this was a great conversation. Yeah, right. Maybe we could put that at the end.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, I mean, this was a great conversation. We're going to have to keep, bringing you back if you're willing to do so, because I feel like, I learn a lot, and I hope, everybody listening and watching, learned a lot from this when it comes to AI, cybersecurity, and all the cool stuff that education and business is doing to, empower the state of West Virginia. So, Tom, thanks so much.
Yeah, I am to have businesses invest in the students like this, and I can tell that you guys really, really care. It just means the world to me, and it means the world to them too.
Well, your enthusiasm is intoxicating. I mean, it is
absolutely,
it really is, and Tom's like this all the time, right? All the time, and I think that's the reason why he has such a great rapport with the students.
Yeah,
they are attracted to that, and so please let us know. We would love to continue this partnership.
Let's do it.
And making sure those students are educated.
And we'd love to come into your classes too, and have conversations. If you find yourself back down in Grafton, we could get someone down there as well, and start getting into the K through 12 schools.
Yeah, I can give your info to the organizer.
Absolutely.
And we had 30 people. Everybody was there. NASA was there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Come on down.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining and watching. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brandon. And it's hope y'all have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.